Busy time of year as Duke football gets set for their bowl game, taking on UCF in the Military Bowl. Duke men's basketball continues to move forward with a 10-2 record on the year. And how are the Duke Blue Devils that are currently in the NBA doing? We're going to discuss all those topics with our good pal Josh Cox coming up on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. It's so great to have you here with us on this Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. My name is JJ Jackson, proudly serving as the host of Locked On Blue Devils. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to our podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts. We're available every single weekday. Also, make sure you watch the show on YouTube. Subscribe there as well. We are so close to that 700 subscriber mark, which means we're nearing our goal of 1,000. Let's keep climbing and growing the Locked On Blue Devils community. Your support means the absolute world to us. If you haven't done so already, follow the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. On today's show, very excited to bring on my good buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. We got a lot to talk about today between football, men's basketball, and a variety of other topics. So we're set to dive right in. Josh, it's great to see you each and every week. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, man, missed being with you last week, and so glad we could get back rolling and talk a little football, basketball, whatever you want to do. It's a busy season, certainly.
It is.
So looking forward to talking some Duke athletics.
We've got a lot to get into, and here we are with the Duke football team. They're in the middle of bowl prep right now, and then also what's currently taking place, Josh. Not only do you have a bowl game coming up on December 28th, but December 21st is early signing period, which we need to get rid of the early word now anyway, because this has become the main prioritized signing day across college football. The transfer portal is off and rolling. So while the season is officially over, while Duke finished with that impressive 8-4 regular season record, they're just as busy now as they were in game weeks, it seems.
Yeah, there's a lot going on around the program, and certainly earlier this week, we learned that Al Blades Jr., secondary member of the Miami Hurricanes, is transferring to Duke. So transfer portal is hopping. We had already previously seen an offensive lineman from Elon, and just waiting on some others. But yeah, quote unquote early signing day is coming up, and obviously this coaching staff under Mike Elko has done a really good job. They're expecting 25, 26, 27 or so players to sign, and that would be incredible. And so it's really interesting, man. If you watch the landscape of college football, you see a lot of turnover, a lot of mass exodus happening in different places. And in Durham, it seems to be like as many people that can stick around here are sticking around, and then people are trying to come in as well. And so one word, and that's culture. It's being built right now in the Duke football program.
Which is so great to see. And obviously with culture, the results on the field help. And I think that is a good reason why Duke was able to have such a great season this year. It's becoming so evident that these players really do love it playing for Mike Elko, and they're going to spread the word to other transfers that are out there possibly. And then, like you mentioned, we've talked to a couple of the very recruits, Grayson Loftus being one of the most notable ones in that class. His staff has done a remarkable job of evaluating the high school talent and putting together one of the more impressive high school football recruiting classes that Duke has seen in a number of years.
Yeah, and we're looking right now, even to add to that, it looks like we're going to get a flip from the Big 12 at the linebacker position as well. And so I won't even mention names there. I don't think it's official yet, but looking like we're going to even add to it. And so the class was already looking good. It's going to look a little bit better. And then, the big thing right now in this last, few days before the signing day is just to make sure all these guys who are coming, go ahead and finalize that decision. And so, in the world of college football recruiting, you don't know. You don't know until the signings happen. You don't know until really they show up on campus, because there's always things up in the air. And so, but I love where Duke's at. I think Coach Elko, I think Derek Miller, the head of recruiting at Duke, they've done a great job. That whole staff there of getting what I believe is going to be just solid talent into this program.
And so, as we mentioned, 1 week from today, signing day. 2 weeks from today, Duke football is in the Military Bowl against UCF. How are we feeling about this matchup as we get closer to it? We've had a while to kind of think about it. What all is going through your mind, Josh, in regards to the bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, UCF had a great season. In fact, UCF, who had already previously beaten Tulane, had an opportunity to beat Tulane there in their conference championship game, which would have sent them to the Cotton Bowl had they won that game.
Yeah.
And so, Duke fans, I know there's been some chirping, not a ton, but a little bit of chirping of like, man, I wish we had a Power 5 opponent. I wish, we had a Big Ten opponent, whatever. But I will say this, like UCF, if I'm not mistaken, may still be ranked at 22, or they were before the Tulane game. So they're good. They have the number 1 rated non-Power 5 offensive line in the country. They love to run the football.
Yes, they do.
Obviously, Plumlee, the fourth Plumlee brother, we say he's not related, but the fourth Plumlee is their quarterback. He's a SEC transfer from Ole Miss. It'll be interesting to see how Duke's defense, holds up. Duke had really been stout against the run, but then we ran into Israel Abanikanda and that Pittsburgh team, and they were able to kind of move the ball on the ground against us. But it'll be interesting to see, with this time off and the time to focus on it, what our scheme is when we come out defensively. And hopefully if we can shut down the run, no reason why Duke shouldn't win the game, but we have to shut down the run.
Yeah, and Plumlee, their quarterback, has been injured a little bit. Some folks didn't know if he'd be able to go all the way in that conference championship game. Gus Malzahn, of course, the former Auburn coach, doing a great job leading that program now. And UCF, you talk about the Power 5 opponents. This is where we remind people that next year, we don't wait for a couple of teams to go over to the the SEC in Texas and Oklahoma. But next year in 2023, UCF joins the Big 12. Their Power 5 taking a step up. They've already painted the Big 12 logo out on their field. They're ready to rock and roll, knowing that the next time games are played at the Bounce House, their home stadium, that they're going to be in the Big 12. So this is a fun matchup and a good opponent for Duke to have in their bowl game this season.
Yeah, I agree. And, at the end of the day, Duke fans can't be, choosy and picky when it comes to postseason.
Made it to a bowl game. We did it.
At the end of the day, we are playing in December. And so Duke football being played in December is ideal. And so, we're looking forward to it. Military Bowl, obviously, with everything that comes along with that, the respect to the military and to the armed forces, and to I know they're going to have the huge flag that covers the field at the game. They're going to have like a legit flyover and stuff like that, so that's going to be neat. Duke's not been to the Military Bowl before, so it's a new bowl. And I believe they're prepared. If you look at the practices, and we've spoken to a couple of the players and whatnot during this time, the practices are a little bit different. They're not as hard. They'll get ready game week like they would normally. But these practices have really been more like the skills and different things they're lifting and those types of things. It's not really been like grinded out practices.
Right.
And so, who knows? Maybe this is a time for, a true freshman who didn't get much playing time to maybe squeak in a little bit more, now that really the red shirt thing is, it's kind of done. If you're going to red shirt, you have red shirted by now, obviously. So I don't know if any of that will happen, but it could help our depth a little bit. And, I'm interested to see how this team looks with a month off or whatever from their last game. You never know. That's a lot of time. So
it's going to be fun for sure. We'll be able to watch that game again 2 weeks from today. Duke in the Military Bowl taking on UCF. Our conversation will continue in just a moment here on Locked On Blue Devils after our first time out today. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks has cut prices 50% site-wide to make you the gift-giving hero that you've always wanted to be. This is just insane. The holidays are here, and you can achieve gifting greatness when you give the gift of perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks have put together a delicious selection of various gift packages to make shopping for the ones you love nice and easy. Go to omahasteaks.com and take advantage of 50% off site-wide. Plus, use code LOCKEDON at checkout to get an additional $40 off your order. Omaha Steaks has everything you need to give a gift that's simply perfect. Again, Omaha Steaks, a gift from the heart, a gift that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Visit omahasteaks.com. Take advantage of 50% off site-wide. Plus, use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to get that extra $40 off your order. Minimum order may be required. Omaha Steaks, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, I'm JJ Jackson alongside Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk's Section 17 podcast. Let's talk about your podcast for a moment, Josh, because you guys have a couple of noteworthy guests that have made appearances not only here recently, but throughout the history of the Section 17 podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the latest two have been, well, we've had three here in the last, month or so, 6 weeks or so. Memorable Factor, who most casual Duke fans will not know, but he's the linebacker, kind of a scout team linebacker from England, who happens to have a YouTube channel with over 75,000 subscribers to it, where he breaks down cricket games mostly now. So very interesting. And then the captain, Dwayne Carter, was a great in-person interview that we had, and that was just a lot of fun. And then this past week we released an interview or conversation. It's not an interview really, a conversation with Riley Leonard. We really just sat down and talked to him. We didn't even have things scripted out questions wise. We just talked to Riley about the season. And then he has a super fan on our podcast, Jamie Holt. And Scott, Brian, and I wrote a love letter to Riley from Jamie and made Jamie read it live on the podcast. And Jamie had never read it before until that moment in the moment. And so
That's awesome.
It was the funniest thing we've ever had happen on our podcast. And Riley was he was like dying. He was crying, laughing, couldn't think of anything to say. The only thing that came out of his mouth in between laughs was that was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to him. So anyway, if you get a chance, wherever you listen to the podcast, sure. just look for Section 17 podcast. We'd appreciate it, as obviously JJ does here, liking and subscribing, rating and reviewing, especially, with YouTube being big for you now, subscribing on YouTube. That's a big deal. We're heading in that direction next year. So we're going to feel that pressure. So
yeah, big time for sure. All right, so let's transition a little bit, shift our gears, and talk about Duke men's basketball, who's now got a 10-2 record after a win on Saturday against Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm excited about the performance we saw from Blue Devils. Jaden shoot things, which I'm a big fan of that. Obviously, Josh Cox, and I'm fired up by what we saw this past weekend from Duke. Tariq Whitehead takes another step forward, it seems. Tell me where you're at with the Duke men's basketball squad.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, from like a 30,000 foot view, I mean, there were a lot of questions coming into this season of like, how was John Shire going to do this and how was John Shire going to do that? At the end of the day, I think we're sitting exactly where Duke fans would be happy with, and this team is growing. It's interesting to see the rotations. For years and years, Duke fans have, gotten on K for having too short of a bench and for not playing guys. And
amen.
Here, Coach Shire is 9-10 deep pretty much every game. He's, quick at the end of the games too to get in some of those other guys. And we've seen players like Christian Reeves and whatnot, get some extended minutes at the end of games, which I think is great, man. You never know when you're going to need a couple minute stretch in a big game later on in the season from a guy like him. And so overall, I love where we're at. A couple of individual players that I really am intrigued by and impressed by. You mentioned Dariq Whitehead, and Duke fans have been waiting on Dariq. Obviously, he was out for several weeks before the season, unable to practice with the team and unable to really get in game shape. And so I think the few games he's played, and now with this breather that we're getting for like 12 days or whatever it is during the Christmas holiday, I believe when we come back from Christmas, Dariq's going to be like ready to roll. We have definitely seen him take some steps forward over the last couple of games. We've seen his bounce get back a little bit. We've seen him make some really strong plays. He shoots the ball decently from three. So I really like where Derek is. We'd already mentioned Derek Lively, I believe, the last time that he had already been improving. And so we're seeing that continue as well. But, I mean, look, the last game against Maryland Eastern Shore, obviously the captain, Jeremy Roach, sits out that game. And you really saw Tyrese Proctor, who has the best Australian accent. It's incredible. By the way, I don't know if anyone was watching the game, but when they interviewed him after the game, his accent was, very obvious on ESPN and then, or ACC Network. And then when they finished, Randolph Childress was like, "Good day, mate." Like that's how he said goodbye on the interview. So thought that was pretty funny. But Tyrese was really good. And here's what we got with Tyrese. You have like a high risk, high reward a little bit. He makes some incredible reads and passes. With that, as a young player, remember he's here a year early even. He also turns the ball over a little bit. And that's something he'll work on, as the game kind of comes to him a little bit, and he gets acclimated to the game. But I really am enjoying seeing him play. I'm enjoying seeing Derek get better. Those are the two guys that kind of stand out in my mind. And I know you were happy to see your boy shoot.
Yeah.
What was it, 3 threes? One of them was a beautiful pump fake step back. Like it was really nice. And I'm so happy for that kid.
Yeah, we've missed that for sure. And look, he's the 10th man, and Duke had only been playing 9 so far. Talked about it a little bit on Monday with Jason Evans. So to see him get that opportunity was great. Unsolicited, John Shire praised him for what he was able to do, so much so that Duke's creative staff that are very strategic with what they put out there in the vision of the program decide to do a pull-out quote graphic, kind of recognizing the game that Jaden Shute had for Duke. I think that could be significant moving forward. And then in a lot of ways, I keep thinking about this Jeremy Roach injury, Josh, because we've got a lot of time to kind of let him heal. And it's just a toe injury is what we're hearing right now for Roach, and not as many games to be played in the coming weeks and that sort of thing. Maybe this time off will do Jeremy Roach some good. However, there still seems to be you got to figure out how to make Proctor and Roach sort of work together, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have the X factor of Jalen Blake's in the mix as well, playing really well off the bench, providing a spark. I mean, I loved the play in the last game where he got a steal and then the ball swung to him and then he hit a 3 all within 5 seconds of each other. But yeah, I agree. The most successful Duke teams historically have had 2 guys that really can handle the ball as a point. You think back, quickly to the 2015 team with both Tyus Jones and Quinn Cook. Thinking back to the 2010 national title team, you had both John Shire and Nolan Smith. You know what I mean? Like all of those teams. And so at the end of the day, I think Duke, and I think any team plays well with 2 ball handlers. The question is, can Tyrese continue to improve his shooting? Getting his feet set, making sure that he's squared up. He has a beautiful shot, but just making sure he's shooting that 3. We'd obviously love to see him approach that 40% mark from behind the arc. I think that would actually go a long way and really helping that duo become the best backcourt it could be. So I'd like to see his shot selection and efficiency, go up.
Let's take our last time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils today. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline, your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college football bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, we've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Moving forward and wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, I'm JJ Jackson alongside my buddy Josh Cox. So as we said, Duke basketball, a lot of downtime right now. Finals week on campus that they've got to knock out some exams academically. And then the rest of the way, Josh, it's ACC games for the Duke men's basketball team. They're going to play every single team in the conference. a couple of teams multiple times to total up to your 20 ACC games. Conference has several tiers so far this season with the level of competition and that sort of thing. But it is notable to know that, okay, here we go. Now we're only in ACC play from here on out.
Yeah, and I mean, credit where credit's due. Shout out to Virginia for kind of being, leading the way right now. I believe Duke and Virginia kind of stand alone right now at the top of the conference. And then, I mean, you say it's ACC play. If it includes Louisville right now, it might as well not be ACC play. Boy, they've come out of the gates like a tortoise, for sure. But anyway, no, I will not make any comments because there's former Duke legend Nolan Smith on that staff. So that's all I'll say. But yeah, the ACC is very interesting this year, and there are tiers. And listen, we're not fans of our brothers down the road here in Chapel Hill, but they're going to turn it around. They're going to figure it out. I mean, at the end of the day, more than likely, so they went on a little bit of a losing streak there, but they're going to figure that out. And then I think there's going to be some teams, that show up. Virginia Tech, it looks to be a tough out, as they have been, over the last few years. And so, and I don't want to get into name calling because there's a lot of teams that are going to be good. But yeah, right now, ACC play is where you make your money, right? If you're John Shire, if you're Duke, it's like, hey, we got through the non-conference. We did our thing. 2 losses, honestly, 2 well-earned and deserved losses to 2 very good teams. Nothing to hang your head about, losing to Kansas and to Purdue. And now here we go. And this is where we make our money, right? This is where we, win championships. And so at the end of the day, that Duke Virginia game, it's going to be a fun one because I think those are going to be the 2 teams battling at the top, when it's all said and done.
Here we are in ACC play the rest of the way for Duke men's basketball. Of course, Duke, the reigning regular season champions of the conference. So they've got that title to defend this season. And it starts on the 20th with the game against Wake Forest and then Florida State to close out the year. And then we jump in to 2023. So with that being said, a lot of downtime right now with not basketball games to watch for Duke. Coming next week, we are going to have a bit of a deep dive into the NBA season so far and highlight some of our former Duke Blue Devils. A couple of the answers are obvious, Josh, but as our viewers and listeners prepare for a conversation to be had next week, who are the players right now that they definitely need to be aware of great things happening at the next level?
Well, I mean, I believe we have 2 former Duke University men's basketball players, in my opinion, who are in the top 5 of the MVP conversation as we currently sit here. And the obvious Jason Tatum, even though Boston's been on a little bit of a downtrend these last just few days. I think they've lost 2 straight. For some reason that Golden State thing is a hurdle for them. But Tatum is still having a absolutely monster season. And then if you've not noticed what's going on in New Orleans, the last 7 games, our boy Zion is he's on another level.
Yeah, the best player in the league the last 7 games.
The most unstoppable offensive player in the league right now. And that is with all due respect to every other player. But right now in this stretch, he can't be stopped. And then this is New Orleans now number 1 in the West, beat Phoenix twice this past weekend. If you watch the Friday night game, you saw the exclamation point where Zion did a 360 windmill at the end of that game, which, by the way, the little scuffle that happened at the end of that game was just as much about Chris Paul throwing an elbow to Alvarado's neck, which is what they found on a different camera angle as the time was expiring, than it was about that dunk. So everybody's going crazy about the dunk, but there was yet another Chris Paul dirty play that led to an altercation at the end of a game. And so anyway, they're sitting at the top of the West right now. And this is with Brandon Ingram out, Herb Jones out. Right. This is with CJ McCollum not being efficient. He had a couple of good games, but he's not vintage CJ McCollum right now. I think he'll get back there. But man, this team, if they put it all together, I'm trying to hold. Yeah. I got
He's
NBA
so much
League
fun
Pass.
to watch. Yeah.
I got NBA League Pass, and it's like it's on those Pelicans, man. I've already got my money's worth, and here we sit in early December. So
yeah, we've got. I mean, look, Duke opened the season with 25 players on NBA roster, so we've got a ton to sort of highlight and that sort of thing. Just recently this week, and as was a trend last year, anytime John Morant does not play for the Memphis Grizzlies, we're getting great performances from Tyus Jones at that lead guard spot. AJ Griffin had a game winner the other night for Atlanta. Paulo Banchero has been an unbelievable
shout out, who gave him the pass.
And Jalen Johnson.
Jalen Johnson with the pass.
Yeah, and he's played more.
The pseudo brotherhood.
Yes, exactly.
Paulo breaking records as a rookie.
Right. Awesome to see. Awesome to see for sure.
Well, that'll be a fun episode.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thanks for stopping by today's show, man. Always good to catch up.
JJ, have a great day, man.
That's my buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast, and that's going to do it for our program today. Again, if you haven't done so already, please be sure that you follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show daily on YouTube as well and subscribe on that platform. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.